Okay, good evening and welcome to the Uncovering Greatness podcast. It is great to have you join us this evening. For those of you who don't know, my name is Nicole Mitchell. I'm part of the Uncovering Greatness team and very excited. Barry's joining us from Namibia. So Barry, why don't you say hello?
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Great to be with you. Those of you who have never met me or don't know me, my name is Barry Mitchell. I am the founder of Uncovering Greatness, and great to be with you tonight, sitting in the wonderful city of Windhoek. And great to be with you for our Uncovering Greatness podcast. Nicole, over to you.
Great, thank you, Barry. So this evening we are going to be chatting a little bit around mindset. And because I think something that I have seen recently, and I recently came across a quote which I just loved, which was, most people know they want a better mindset, but they have no idea what that looks like. And it's just something that really hit home for me, because it's what I do. I teach mindset. And so it really just hit home around how many people are talking around mindset. I want to have a better mindset. I want to have better things, but yet they have no idea what that actually looks like. And it's one of the things around our mind is we don't actually see it. We can't see it. We don't see what's happening. We kind of feel what's happening, but we don't actually see what's going on inside the minds of ourselves and the minds of those around us. And the girls were watching a movie earlier this evening, and it was a husband had killed his wife, and the lawyers, the policeman who found them was testifying, and he said, yeah, the husband must be guilty because he must have killed the wife because his reaction was not normal. And it was fascinating because the lawyer then asked, well, what should his reaction have been? Well, how do you judge it? What should it look like? And, you know, he should have cried, or he should have done this, or he should have done that. And one of the things around mindset is we don't actually see what's happening in people's minds. So if somebody goes into shock and they just switch off and they go absent, you don't actually see it. Or if they go into sadness or what have you, sometimes you can see it, but often it's not something that is tangible, that is measurable, that we can see. And so, yeah, I just thought tonight I'd just talk a little bit around that, because we often don't realize what's happening in the mindset of the people around us. And often we don't even know what's happening with our own mindsets. And you know, I love to use examples of the physical. So before I go there, Barry, is there anything you want to add to what I've said so far?
Yeah, I think you made such an important point. I think, you know, in very often in the seminars that I run, you know, I'll often ask the question, so what do you think change? And invariably, most of the time, as you know, the answer comes up, mindset, change mindset. The reality is that saying change mindset and doing change mindset are very different things. And I think it's what I've learned over the years that I've been in the personal development industry, is that to say it is one thing, to do it is a very different. And as you say, Nicole, it's really understanding, what does it mean to change mindset? What does that really mean, that I've got to change my mindset? And what are the things that are in the way?
Thank you. And yeah, it is. It's just, I think it's such an intangible, or it's an unmeasurable thing. And so I hope everybody doesn't mind that I use some physical examples, because, you know, if you go into, say, for example, you decide you want to get fit and you start running, you have a measurable. You start off and you go, okay, cool, I'm going to start running. And the first time I run, I'm going to run 2Ks and I'm going to do it in this much time. And then this, and you measure it each time. And by the end you go, okay, cool, I got better by so many minutes. Or say you want to build muscle, and you start, and you can actually, you start off and you do 5 kgs, and then you can do 10 kgs, and it's measurable. But when we start talking mindset, there's nothing to measure it against. And I think this is where sometimes there's some key questions you can ask yourself to actually look at where is your mindset. And one of the ones that Barry always asks is, how big is your game? So what, how big is the game that you're playing? And for me, it's just, for one of the questions I will often ask people is just, what game are you playing? Because a lot of times people don't actually stop and look at what is the game that they're playing. And, it's very much, if you take a soccer stadium, for example, or a rugby stadium, you could be playing a variety of different games in that stadium. And you could be a spectator on the side of the field. You could be a player on the field. You could be a coach. You could be a manager. You could be, the person that owns the teams, or you could be the person that owns the stadium. Or if you're playing the biggest game of all, you could be the person that owns TV rights to the stadium. So it's just one way to look at it is, what game are you playing and who are you playing with? Because if you're not clear on who you're playing with and what game you're actually playing, you don't have anything to measure it against. So, yeah, Barry, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think, that saying, how big is your game, is really key. So, when you get to what you think is a big game, suddenly you realize there's a bigger game. And, I think one of the things about mindset is that, I mean, it's quite a, maybe, let me weigh the statement up, but the size of our mind is infinite. So there are infinite possibilities to achieve what we have with our mind, but logically we can't think infinite, if that makes sense. So how many of you can connect with this? You think you're playing a big game until you get to what you think a big game is, and then you go, oh wow, there's so much more. And that's human capacity. So the ability for us to expand in our own human capacity is infinite. And that's mindset. So I love what you say. There's not a tangible measurement to say, I know that when I'm losing weight, I get on the scale and I go, I've lost weight. I haven't lost weight. It's very simple. When I'm changing my mindset, it all comes back on feet. The only way I can measure it is feedback. How am I handling things today compared to how I handled it a month ago, a year ago? And I know that, Nicole and I are often talking when we're going through situations. Oh, wow, can you imagine how I would have handled that last year, or how I would have handled that 3 years ago? My mindset's definitely changed. I'm thinking bigger. I can handle bigger things. So you got to quantify it somewhere, but it's very hard to quantify.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, in terms of one way to quantify it is definitely in terms of, if you're looking from a business perspective, you could look at it from a financial perspective. What is the size of the deals you're doing? How many deals are you doing? And are the size of your deals getting bigger? And is the amount of money in your bank account getting bigger? Because from a financial mindset point of view, if you are growing your mindset financially, you will start bringing in bigger deals. And I'll share this with you. Recently, well, this last week, I had a client approach me, and I had an opportunity which I did not see. And because my mindset around money is not as big as theirs. And they approached me and said, we believe that, that there's this opportunity, and would you be interested in going on 50-50 with us? And I kind of went, sure. And then I walked away and went, oh, flip, what did I just agree to? I just agreed to pretty much a deal that's probably going to be $250,000 rand. And I kind of went, oh, flip. And I started running into a whole bunch of charge, because have I done a deal that big before? Not to that magnitude, and certainly not with somebody else, with somebody else's money. And for me, that was a big thing, because I had to stop and go, what is actually happening, because all these emotions started coming up, all this stuff started coming up, and like I'd say to Barry, oh flip, and he's going, but you've done it, you've handled this much money before, you know. And I'd go, yes, but not you know, it was just mine and it wasn't an issue, and suddenly now it's double the amount. I'm putting in the same amount as probably the biggest deal I've had, but now that's half of, you know, the total combined. And so it's been challenging for me, because I've really had to push myself in terms of looking at how I deal with money. And it has been challenging. And because I have charge around money, or this amount of money and the size of this deal, guess what's happened? There have been stops. The bank froze my account. This has been happening, that's been happening, you know, and then when they did unfreeze it, it still took them 72 hours to transfer the money. And I'm phoning going, where the flip is this money? And and it's been a challenge for me, because suddenly my mindset around money has grown, but there's still emotions there, there's still charge there. And unless I'm dealing with that charge, I'm not going to be able to do the deal again. I'm not going to be able to do something like that again. So for me, one of the things is I've had to look at my mindset around money and start going, what is actually happening? And I'm very, very grateful that for processing, because the person that I've done the deal with, the business partner, has been amazing in terms of, they kind of phoned me afterwards and went, you know, we don't want to put any pressure on you. And I kind of said, no, it's okay. I don't have an issue with the deal. The issue I have is my charge around money. And they went, oh, great. Okay, well, we don't have any charge. We've done, you know, they've done massive deals, of course, because they saw this deal that I had that I didn't even see. So it's been a huge learning for me in terms of, can I keep growing my mindset around money? And it's something around, you know, we think we've dealt with something, and then a bigger deal comes along and we suddenly go, oh flip. and that's the challenge when it comes to mindset, is that we actually don't know what we've dealt with and what we haven't. And it's okay if we haven't dealt with it. The biggest thing is to acknowledge that that's what's happening. Because the moment, in terms of, I connect, you know, I said to my business partner, I have charge around money. He went, okay, great. Now I know what I'm dealing with. And he's been awesome in terms of, he's checked in with me every day. How's this going? What help do you need? Okay, do you need any help with the bank? Do you need this? Okay, this is probably what's going to happen next. And when we start looking at the investments, and he's been amazing in that because I have the deal and I have everything, I need to do all the work. But he's been a real support in terms of, this is what's going to happen. Okay, next step. And because he knows I'm working on my mindset and working through and processing, he knows that I'm dealing with the charge that I have around money, and I can talk about it too. And this is something that a lot of people don't do, is because there's charge around it, they think, I mustn't talk about it. I mustn't let people know. And the moment you start talking about it, it actually helps the charge to actually dissipate. And it helps the people around you to help you. And then the other thing is, so I'll give you an example of it. Have you ever seen somebody that's confused? They're looking for something and they can't find it. You can see it written all over them that they're confused, because they're looking for the paper and they're digging over here and they're digging over there, and it's physical. You can see it. When it happens in our minds, we can't see it. People around us can't see it. And that is why it is so, so important. It is vital that you talk about it, because that's when people can help you. And that's when you can kind of unpack the box of stuff in your mind, and you can actually work out where the charge is, what's stopping you, what incidents, you know, those kind of things. So it's key. The key thing around mindset is actually to talk about it. And I had an incident that happened this week with a client that came, and they gave me a call and said, listen, and these are, and I don't want to put anything, but these words just drive me nuts, because this person comes to me and says, I've prayed about it and I've decided that I'm going to stop doing X. And the moment people say that to me is generally, I know that they're sitting in a whole bunch of charge and they haven't said anything to anybody. And that is the number one reason or excuse to justify why I'm doing what I'm doing, without actually unpacking it and talking about it. And, it's very different if somebody comes and says, I've prayed about this, I've prayed about that, and they're always talking about how they pray about stuff. That's fine. But when somebody comes and says, it's just a one-off, I spent some time in meditation today and I've decided, and then you just know that that person is sitting in a whole bunch of stuff. They can't see the wood for the trees. And instead of talking about it, immediately they've gone into defensive mechanism, and they'll give you the reason why they can't do it before they've even discussed it. And then they pull themselves out immediately. So it really is key to make sure that you are talking to the right people when you start unpacking things, and that you're going in with the right attitude that you need help to make the next decision, not you've already decided before you even start talking about it. So, Barry, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I love, you talk about the charge around money, and what it got me thinking is sometimes, like for me, it's not the charge around money. What I often find is when my mindset's changing, I connect with bigger people than me. And it's the charge around working with bigger people. So I know when I look at me, I go, okay, I'm playing a bigger game. I have bigger people than me that are pushing me at a much higher level. And how I handle that and how I push through it is a key thing. Because a lot of times when you're playing a bigger game, bigger people will show up. The deal is, can you stay in that space to grow your mindset in that space, or do you pull up? And what I see with a lot of people is like you're saying, around that person said, oh, I've decided I'm not going to do that. What people do is once the person that they're dealing with is bigger than them, they tend to pull out and find reasons why they're not going to work with that person. I just, every time I've had that in my life and I've actually just pushed through, it's made me a much bigger person. Has it been easy? Not at all. I mean, a number of I worked with Robert Kiyosaki for a number of years. Was that easy? Not at all. Could I have chucked it in often? Damn right I could. Did it piss me off? Very often. Did it upset me? Regularly. But I became a much bigger person because I was prepared to. The only person that I could work on was me. It had nothing to do with Robert pushing me or anything like that. But I had to work on me. I had to look at where's all that stuff coming from. And I think those are like when you say, we can't really measure mindset. However, an indicator for me of mindset, like you talking about, is you suddenly look around and you're going, oh, I'm doing bigger deals, or oh, I'm dealing with bigger people, or oh, I'm associating with much more successful people. And when I talk about hanging out with bigger people, I don't mean like, oh, I went and looked for that person so that I could hang out with them. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who arrive in your life. They arrive in your life. They give you some offers to do some stuff, to work with them or to do whatever, and they force you to play a bigger game. And I've just learned in my life is, can you step up to that plate? Because that's really where your mind is getting challenged.
Yeah, thank you. And it's just when you start looking, are you, from a financial perspective, there's some key things you could look at in terms of the environments that you're around, like in terms of, are you going to fancier restaurants? Are you traveling business class? Are you thinking about traveling business class? Are you actually looking at that? Are you looking at upgrading your car? Are you looking at investments and things like that? And it's just the more you start to look at those things, that's what, when Barry says it's, in terms of you'll start to, the environment around you will start to change. Those are some of the things you want to be looking for in terms of your mindset and in terms of business. Yeah.
I mean, I had a wonderful experience today. I got picked up by a client in Namibia, and we were going to go. We're doing some training out at the international airport, and while we were driving to the airport, I said, "We're not, you know that it's out of the airport." He said, "Yeah." Anyway, we didn't go to the international airport. We went to the domestic airport, and he flew me out in his private plane, and we went from domestic to international, landed at international, spent the day teaching and training, had a remarkable day, and he flew me back home again. Why? Because the airport's a 40-minute drive from thing, and it was a 20-minute flight. And it was a realization. It was, oh wow, you just and a much more successful business owner than me, and all those type of things. But you have that realization of, oh, where did that come from? It wasn't ordered or designed. It just arrived. So when you're playing those games, who you playing with, but that arrived not because of suddenly I got lucky. It's because I've been building and fostering those relationships for a long time, and playing in a bigger space, and forcing myself to play in a bigger space, and forcing myself to challenge myself on things that I didn't want to challenge myself on, and those things come up. So those for me are the telltale signs of, oh, okay, that's interesting. I am in a bigger environment, so.
Yeah, and I love what you shared around, it's because you took action. It's because you've been building relationships. It's because you've been reaching out and connecting. And that's the one thing that's going to push you through the charge and help you get to the next level, is to keep reaching out and to keep pushing yourself and to keep going. Because what a lot of us do is we go, oh, it's because, let's face it, it's not easy to keep pushing through. It's not.
Yeah.
But when you keep pushing through and you keep going and you keep taking action and you keep reaching out, you will find yourself in a place where you suddenly go, oh, wow, how did I get here? You look back and you go, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that hard. One of the key things is just not to stop. And the challenge that I put out to this client, that said, oh, I've decided I'm going to stop X. My challenge to them was, okay, so if you're going to stop, that's fine. However, if you have, and their response was, I'm stopping for these reasons, and I'm going, oh, no, you're not. I can see all the charge written everywhere. And my challenge to them was, could they get every single thing connected to that area up to date, and everything in exchange? So if there was any filing that needed to be done, or any invoicing that needed to be done, anything in that area that needed to be done before they stopped doing it, they had to get everything up to date. Because I genuinely believe that they are stopping because they have an issue around their invoicing. It's not around, and it's the issue is, it's challenging to suddenly be successful when you haven't been successful. It's challenging when you go into a new area. And often it's the positive things that we're actually hiding from rather than the negative. We avoid success. We avoid those things. So it's my challenge to them was, could they get everything up to date before they decided that they were going to stop doing what they're doing? So why? Because the goal is to keep them in action. Because if they stay in action, they'll push through the charge, and probably by the time they've got all their invoicing up to date, all their filing, all the bits and pieces that they need to get done, they'll probably have had a shift, and they probably won't stop. And that's the thing, is that that with mindset is, it's so important to keep reaching out and keep connecting with somebody that's going to encourage you to push through and get the right things done, so that you can move through what you can't see. So it's like if you're in a storm and you can't see anything, you have nowhere. You sometimes, if you think of you in an airplane with a storm around you, sometimes you don't even know which way's up. But if you have somebody else who's got a bigger perspective outside, who can guide you, that's the power of reaching out. Is you've got somebody else that can guide you and push you and keep you going in the direction that you should be going, instead of stopping. And I think that's what so many people I've experienced have done, is because it becomes hard, it becomes difficult, it becomes, I can't see where I'm going. So the easiest thing to do is to stop or to pull out. Eject you out the plane and up goes the parachute and we stop. And the problem is that what happens is that's a place that we never ever come back to, because there's so many unfinished pieces there. We don't ever come back to it. Why? Because now if I haven't gotten my invoicing and all my filing and everything up to date, when I come back, it becomes challenging, because where do I start? I'm not starting with a clean slate. I'm starting with all the bits and pieces from before. So it's easier just not to go there. And that's what happens, is people pull out and they don't keep going. So yeah, Barry, any comments?
Yeah, I think you say, as you're talking, my mind's working, and I'm thinking, it's when we pull out of something, we never know what it was like to actually push through. And a lot of people pull out because they deem it's not successful. But the reality is, when you complete a task, even if you don't get it to completion to the level that you thought it was meant to be, you will push through, be able to push through to the next level. And when I look back on, definitely my last 15 years, I think the one key thing that saved me is taking action. And in doubt and uncertainty, it's just taking action. I'm in Namibia for the next 2 days, teaching and training people from the Airports Company of Namibia and like immigration people on how to welcome people when they come into the airport. And it's a wonderful opportunity. But what that took is I had to fly into Namibia last Friday, pretty much just for a meeting. And it was inconvenient, and it was an irritation. It was a pain in the ass, and there was a whole lot of things that it could have been. But the reality is just push through and take action. And what you do is you suddenly find out what gets created out of it. And I think that's the biggest stopping point for many people. We're not getting the results that we expect, so we pull out, instead of actually just finishing the task and finding out what was really expected as results out of that. And so often the results we expect are so far away from the results we actually got. It's just that commitment to push through on the things that in your spirit you should be doing. They're very different things, because not pushing through on something that you've had a calculated decision and it's like, okay, I need to shut this down because it's not working, is very different to, I need to pull out because there's a whole lot of charge, but I'm finding a reason to pull out that's not actually the charge. And when we're brutally honest with ourselves, I think what you're talking about, Nicole, is those things, because those things are sitting here. And it's like, oh, okay. But when we talk to other people, we create all these other reasons why we actually not doing what we know that we should be doing in our spirit.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where your mindset comes in, is how much can you push through? And what game are you playing, and versus what game do you want to play? Because a lot of people want to play the bigger game, yet they still keep playing the smaller game.
Yeah.
They're not willing to push through to keep doing it. And I mean, a great example is somebody that wants to give up smoking, for example. And I know certainly in terms of Barry's journey around giving up smoking, is he'd give up and then he'd start again, and then he'd give up and then he'd start again, and then he'd give up and start again, to the point where he eventually gave up and he stopped completely. It was not an easy journey around the process, but every time he'd give up for longer and longer periods. he kept pushing through. He didn't give up the process. And it's when you're pushing through, are you stopping and giving up halfway through, or are you pushing through? I see this with some of my clients as I'll say to them, just take one area to mastery. That's all you got to do. Pick one, take that one area to mastery. Because when you've taken one area to mastery, you can take any area you like to mastery. And that's why you'll see a lot of good sportsmen, like if they're professional cricket players, they're really good at golf too. And they're really good at tennis, or they're really good at something else, or they're really good at making business deals. Why? Because they understand the time, effort, and energy, what it takes to take something to mastery. And they can do it again and again. And that is one of the things that's going to help you with mindset, because when you take one area to mastery, it will equip you and give you the skills in order to take the second area and the third area. So it is important to make sure that you are pushing through and taking an area mastery. Because my experience, what I see a lot of people do is they go, this isn't working, so the gym instructor isn't working, so I'm going to go into CrossFit. And the CrossFit instructor isn't working, so I'm going to go into yoga instructing. And the yoga instructing is not, it's not giving me what I want, so I'm going to move on. And they land up doing a whole bunch of things, and they never take one area to success. So it's really important that whatever you do, pick one area and push through and take it to success, because that is going to give you the abilities that you need and the mindset that you need to understand what it takes to take an area to mastery. So yeah, Barry, anything you want to add there?
Yeah, just a thought. If you've never done something, how do you know what it means to be successful in that area? And what we create is we create the perception based on what we think we've already done. So in order to really understand what it takes to be successful in that area, you have to get to that area to understand what success is. So, a lot of times we pull out, or people quit based on their perception from the position they're in, not from their perception of the position, not from the reality or the truth from the position they actually get to. And it's understanding that when you're going for something bigger, your mindset is over here. Your mindset's over here. And the game is over here, but your perceptions are over here with this mindset. Yes, you can think you know, but you don't, because you've never been there. It's like saying, I think I know when I'll become a multimillionaire, but you don't, because if you're not earning multi-millions and you've never dealt with them, you can have a perception, but you've got to push through there to actually get what it is. And it's the fears, the insecurities, the anxieties that come from the position that we sit in and the size of our mindset that we sit in, that stops us from reaching those things.
Yeah,
if that makes any sense.
It does. And I think the biggest thing is those fears and anxieties are what stop people. Because I should, in terms of, I should, whatever it is, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be anything from, I should know this stuff, and I don't want anyone to know that I don't know it. So, I'm terrified that somebody's going to find out that I don't know, instead of talking about it and saying, hey, listen, I don't know. And the moment you start talking about it in a safe space, you can deal with it and push through.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just being aware of, are you dealing with it? Are you talking about it with the right people that can help you? Because here's the other thing, it's so easy to go into agreement with, this investment isn't working and I'm just going to quit, or this person isn't doing what they're supposed to, so I'm just going to pull myself out, instead of what was the original intention? What was the original?
And that agreement often comes because we look into agreement with people that are smaller than us. So we go into agreement and they I understand why you quit, or I understand why you're pulling out, because then it gives us the justification to do what we want to do. But notice, when you go to someone that's bigger than you, they'll get you to play a bigger game, and that's the hard part for many people. That's what they don't want. They want that agreement to, Oh, no, so that I can justify why I sit where I sit.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so easy to go to a smaller person to find agreement to say, hey, I don't like that person, or, my boss is an idiot. And, oh, yeah, my boss is just like that, blah, 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 blah. And instead of becoming solution orientated in terms of how do you fix that? How do you change it? And how do you, what is it that you're trying to do and trying to achieve? So I guess, does anybody have any questions before we go any further? Or any comments or anything? Is this making sense, what we've been talking about? Has this been valuable information, or is it stuff you already know? Fiona.
Hi, Nicole. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I think the difficulty for me is knowing when I'm pulling out because I know something's not going to work, and when I'm pulling out because I'm not pushing through, if you know what I mean. I find that quite difficult. And also the second thing is to find someone bigger than you that's not going to go into agreement with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you are right. It is a challenge to, are you pulling out because it's for the right reasons, or are you pulling out because it's hard and it's difficult and there's charge? And so, and one of the things is if there's any unfinished pieces around it. If there is unfinished pieces and there are things that you haven't done, or these people you haven't spoken to, then chances are you're pulling out for the wrong reasons. And that would be my challenge to anybody. When you want to pull out, make sure all the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted, all the filing's done. There's no loose ends, because those are the things that will come back and haunt you. And, in terms of, I wish I should have kept doing that. I should have done this. I should have gone into business with that person. I should have built this business. I should have, whatever it is, it's make sure that you've, checked everything, and make sure that everything is completed. All the loops are completed, and that's one way to test if you're pulling out for the right reasons. Because if there are loose ends, chances are you're pulling out for the wrong reasons.
I think I've learned over time that, when I'm working with people, when I'm partnering with people, when things aren't going well and they're about to pull out, they go silent. They pull away, because it's easier to pull away than actually push in and go, okay, how do I deal with this? And I know in my life, every time I feel like pulling away, I've got to examine it, go, why am I pulling away? What haven't I done? What am I not confronting? And yeah, I mean, I was about to say, Fiona, it's pretty simple. But in my world, it's become pretty simple because I'm blatantly honest with myself. It's like, I'm honest. I know the reason I'm pulling out of this is because, frankly, I don't want to do it. Or, yeah, okay, why not? And then weighing it up, and then figuring out, okay, what was my commitment? Where did I make the commitment? What's the charge that's stopping me or not? Okay, and if I can't find that charge, then yeah, okay, I'm making the right decision. If I can find the charge, it's like, okay, fix the charge first. Because when it gets tough, it's easier to pull out. When you're playing a bigger game, it's easier to pull out. Why? Because it's a bigger game. And that's the journey of getting bigger.
I've just had a bit of an aha there, Barry. Thanks for that. Because it also may be that the other person you're dealing with is pulling out for those very reasons. That was quite a realization. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Fiona. And yeah, it brings up a great point. It is, I say easy, it is often you will see people start to go silent. They'll start to disconnect from you when they're pulling out, when things are getting hard for them. And, you know, sometimes it's just a question of ask yourself, am I disconnecting? And if that is the case, have a look at what are the reasons why you're disconnecting? What are the reasons why you're hiding? And Barry also brought up a really great point. It's around being brutally honest with yourself. You got to be brutally honest. Like, what is the reason why I'm disconnecting? Why am I not communicating with this person? And look at your own charge, because often, you know, for me, if I go back to the financial or the investment deal that happened to me, is that it would have been so easy for me not to answer that person's calls. But what did I do? I confronted, you know, they said, oh, you know, we don't want to push you. And I'm like, no, you're not pushing me. I have, you know, it's my charge that you're running into. And the moment I was that brutally honest, it was like, okay, cool. And every stop we've run into, it's like, I had to stop and go, what's happening? Okay, cool. And I look at what's the next step? What's the next piece of charge that I'm running into? And, you know, just look at the fears and anxieties versus what is the outcome I want. So it's just, I'd encourage you, what is the outcome you want? What was the original, you know, intention? And the moment you go back to the original intention, often a lot of the stuff will dissipate, and a lot of the charge will dissipate, because a lot of it's just stuff. So, but yeah, it is important to look at it and go, it's not easy. It's okay. But then find somebody in your life that's bigger than you, that you can trust and build a relationship with. And yes, there's going to be people that you're going to outgrow. And yes, there's, you know, we need to find new people. And it is important that you're always looking for who can I connect to? Who can I bounce ideas off? Who can help me with this? And you know, it's just, I think it's great that every single one of you is on this call, because, you know, you have that ability to ask questions. And I'm really going to encourage you on the podcast. You know, it's pretty much an hour. I'd encourage you, use this time to bring questions, to bring stuff around. You know, are you struggling with something? Do you want to pull out? Do you have business questions? Do you need help with making sales calls? Do you need help with the script? You have an hour to ask questions and to bring, you know, those kind of things to this call. There's a group of people on this call that can challenge you. Are you willing to put yourself in the space and shift your mindset and not get over the, oh, what are these people going to think of me if I ask this? And push yourself through to get yourself to the next level. Because at the end of the day, your mindset is more important than anything else. It's probably the most powerful tool that you have. It's the one thing nobody can ever take away from you. So use this time to, you know, ask questions. You know, if you get stuck or stopped with something during the week, make a note of it, bring it, and come and ask it on the call. And just because we're working on a certain topic doesn't mean you can't ask those questions. You know? And use this time to, you know, grow yourself and bring those things, because you've got a group of business people that can help you. So yeah, anything you want to add to that, Barry?
No, I think the important part is when you feel like pulling out, push in. That's one of my rules of thumb. When I feel like pulling out, I need to push in first. I need to reach more, and then I see what happens. And then if I do reach more, and I can honestly say to myself, I've really honestly done everything I can and it's not working, then I can make those decisions. But a lot of times, you know, there's that, you know, in my world, it goes the other way around. There's the storm before the calm. Yeah, people talk about the calm before the storm, but in this analogy, it's the storm before the calm. Shit hits the fan before you actually push through and realize that you created the results you want, because it's all the emotional turmoil that you have to go through to play a bigger game. And when you do push through, you go, oh, wow, that was worth it. It was tough. Well, I thought it was tough, but it was worth it. That grows your capacity.
Awesome.
That's it. That's all from me.
Thank you so much. Any final questions? questions, comments, anything anybody would like to add? Okay, so yeah, I really would encourage you, as Barry said, come in with your questions, come in with everything that you have, and there's a group of people that you can bounce ideas off of, say this is happening, this is challenging, what have you, and start to make a difference in your life, because at the end of the day, you are the most important person, and you deserve it, and you deserve to be pushing through and growing your mindset and getting bigger and playing a bigger game. So I look forward to your questions, comments, and thoughts during the week. So next week when we come back, I would love to see some questions and things. So have an awesome, awesome week. Keep growing your mindset. Thank you to Sully for hosting the back end. Thank you to each one of you for being on the call this evening. And have a wonderful, wonderful evening. And we will see you back here next week. Thank you and good night.